Hello and welcome to the oddschecker betting show. This is your Tingle Creek preview at Sandown, sponsored by 888 Sport. On today's show, find out Ed Quigley's big fancy for the Peterborough at Huntingdon.
I think he's a huge price personally. 7-1 plays 6-4, whatever. I just think it's a massive price.
Find out which horse 888 Sport ambassador Barry Geraghty thinks can beat Third Time Lucky.
He really impressed me. I don't see any reason why you can't give Third Time Lucky a run. He's a one we like, so I'll keep an eye on him.
And here, the nap that Andy Holding was desperate not to give out on the podcast at Sandown on Saturday.
Yeah, my nap of the weekend's running in this.
Aye.
Yeah, I can't possibly get away with that, can I? I was hoping to God we wouldn't be covering this race.
Starting this preview, where we are going to be looking at all the races at Sandown, and especially, of course, the Tingle Creek as well. But we're going to start at Aintree, where we've got a couple of cracking races on the card. Well, I mean, a cracking card of races, really. But we're just going to look at two of them. Start with the 205, which is the Many Clouds Chase, the Grade 2, just over 3 miles. And we have Protectorat is the 13-8 favourite ahead of Native River, 9-4, Imperial Aura 5-1, Simply the Bets 13-2, 16-1 bar. And I'll come to you first. 8 runners here, lovely each way shape to the race, with the fifth biggest price being 16-1, and bigger after that. Even Tiger Roll at the moment showing up at 20-1. A diverse field. Where do you see the value?
I'd love to be able to tip a horse from an each way perspective, because hopefully all 8 runners will go to post, but none of the ones that are each way prices make a huge amount of appeal. Maybe Sam Brown at a push if the ground went really bad. And I'm always prepared to be slightly flexible when it comes to Aintree ground at this time of year, when they get a bit of rain and a bit of frost on top of already soft ground. It can get very, very tiring. And I think that might just be a little bit of an issue for connections of Protectorat, who is a very good horse, as we know, over 2.5 miles. A fantastic run under a big weight in the Paddy Powers, we know. I mean, he came home very eye-catchingly, and everyone's gone, wait till he goes over 3 miles. But until they actually do it, you're very much in the dark. Whereas we know that Native River will get every yard of it and some. And he's already proven around Aintree, particularly when he's fresh. He won this race 2 years ago, didn't he? And he was spectacular that day. And by and large, his record when he's come off a break, he's really good, despite even when the yard wasn't going well. Maybe not so much 2 years ago, but certainly last year. I thought he ran well in defeat, as well as victory on several of occasions. So, on balance, I'd probably go with the Tizard runner. They've had a fantastic run of things. Lost in Translation, of course. We saw Fiddler on the Road, bit unlucky last week, and he won at Carlisle. So his big guns, as well as his lesser lights, are all firing on all cylinders. We don't know about the trip with regards to Imperial Aura. Well, he comes very much into the Protectorat mould. So if you're backing those two horses, you're very much guessing and hoping rather than going into it with a huge amount of confidence. And Simply the Bets has gained. He's on a bit of a sort of recovery mission after Cheltenham, but again, he's another one that fits into that 2.5 mile category. So the proven stay around this track is Native River, and even though he's an 11-year-old, I'll probably just go with him as the percentage call.
Native River 9-4 as it stands at the moment. So Simply the Bets, interesting one as well, who first run for Paul Nicholls last time. A few of those horses moved from the Andrew Brooks owned horses, moving over from Harry Whittington's yard over to Paul Nichols's, and Simply the Bet's one of those. Ed, how do you see it?
Well, I'd be one of those who Andy says are guessing and hoping, really, because the one I would be taking on at top would be Native River. On official figures, he's the best horse in the field, 166, but rising 12 years of age, I mean, surely some of these younger legs have got to surpass him at some point. I would be with Protectorat. I love the way in which he stormed up the hill last time out. I mean, I've been saying for a while, he needs 3 miles. I've got my wish here. Last time he ran it this course, of course, he won a Grade 1. So I think the track holds no fears. I do take Andy's point. Combination of this trip, and if rain did continue to fall when it became a real test of stamina, that might just blunt what I perceive to be his nippier edge, if you like. So I would be with Protectorat. If you took away the prices and just said who do I think is going to win the race, I would be with percentage call would be with Protectorat. He's unexposed, he's young, he's improving. I think he will improve for the trip. There is an element of guesswork factored into the price. I admit that. And Imperial Aura is a little bit of the joker in the pack now, around a 5-1. I mean, he's the horse who's now failed to complete on his last 3 occasions. Was going okay, in fairness to him, in the Betfair last time out. again, a little bit of an unknown, and he's becoming a little bit of an excuse horse, it has to be said. You just want to see, you know, clear round, no excuses. Let's see what he can do. But yeah, I'll be with Protectorate and Native River. It's just his age. I just think at some point these horses do go, and I just can't believe. I just think others will surpass him, put it that way. And I just think Protectorate, Aintree, 3 miles, this is his bag. And yeah, my only kind of warning flag would be if it did become an absolute swamp and the word heavy started to appear in the ground somewhere, that would be a negative for me. But yeah, on balance, I'm with Protectorate.
Protectorate 13-8 favourite there for Ed. Native River 9-4. Take one each there at the top end of the market. On to the Becher handicap chase, the grade 3, the 240 at Aintree. And we've got Mac Totty at the top of the market, just about at 13-2. Snow Leopardess 7-1. Mighty Thunder 8-1. Kimberlite Candy 11-1. Chris's Dream 12-1 with Check It Out. Violon Rouge 14. Labroy 14. 16-1 bar. Had plenty in there. This is one I'm backing you to solve it. Solve the riddle.
Right. Well, I don't want to end up in the High Court. There's a few of those kind of things flying around at the moment. But I've got the view in here. There's a lot of horses you'd be very happy running well without winning, in terms of smoking their marks up for the lovely Grand National Weights lunch, which I don't get invited to anymore in February. And the last thing they want to see.
You said the wine was corked, wasn't it?
Yeah, the wine was corked. Yeah, I was quite right too. Yeah, the Pinot Noir was dreadful. But the facts being, there's a lot of horses here who wouldn't mind beating £7 or £8 lower and give the adjudicator something to think about when those independent marks come out in February. But one horse who will need to win and will definitely stand a good chance based on previous outings in this race is Labroy for Ben Pauling, Danny McMenamin off bottom weight, 10 stone. He's run twice over the national fences. Now, forget engines and where he finished and everything. He jumps the fences very nicely. He looks a natural over the national fences. You know, he finished 7th in it a couple of years ago when Jamie Codd came over to the ride, where he jumped and travelled really well from a long way just before getting tired on his seasonal reappearance. And he was 3rd in this 12 months ago, admittedly beaten quite a long way, but he was 3rd. But that came off a BHA rating of 141. Well, he's £9 lower this time round, and he's just starting to jump off the page to me now as a well-handicapped horse. We know he's got a touch of class, of course. He's a previous Cheltenham Festival winner. He's got stamina galore. You know, he won the old 4-miler on soft ground. So the rains continue to arrive. That's going to be no problem for him if it turns into a battle of wills. Danny McMenamin could do the 10 stone. That's why he's on board. And he just is interesting. He's 3rd last year. He's £9 lower. And as I said, off 132. He's going to have to kind of boot himself up to the 140 plus kind of region to enable himself to get into the national, if you see what I'm saying. So, yeah, he's definitely one there. I think he'll be trained to the absolute minute for this. He had a recent spin round Fontwell, which should have tuned him up for this. And I think, yeah, he's a double figure price. And I think I just love the way he's a natural jumper of these fences. He's well handicapped. I think there's no excuses here.
Labroy 14-1 with a firm going 6 places. So keep an eye out when you check the oddschecker grids, when you check on the app for the extra places. They're essential for these big handicaps. Andy?
Yeah, not a race I'd be absolutely falling over myself to have a bet in, particularly as I probably have another 20 or 30 to choose from. But it's an exciting race all the same. And punters love these kind of races, don't they? You know, using Ed's theory about horses going really well around the track, you'd certainly have to consider Kimberlite Candy, who was 2nd in this race last year. He really does need bottomless ground, doesn't he? That's when he's at his best. I actually don't think he probably, even though he finished 2nd in the race last year, I don't think that was probably quite him at his absolute maximum. I think he's run better than that round here, even though he was still 2nd. But he did get beat 20 odd lengths by Leon Rouge, who, you know, he was an 11-year-old at the time and he's now 12. So you could certainly pick holes in that form if you're being ultra critical. I think Snow Leopardess has got the potential, and that's the buzzword here with a small p. I've been quite a good one around this track because she's got the kind of run style that I like for this track. Attacking horse that stays 3 miles well, that likes soft ground, that gets into a good rhythm. She was brilliant round Bang on a seasonal reappearance. She just run a good field into the ground that day. And as we've already seen, the form has worked out really well with Black Lion, who finished 5th, scooting at Haydock in midweek. And she's got quite a tempting looking mark. I think she's 140 rated, 10 stone 4. I'm not a real weights and measures man, but I'd rather be a suppose, a lightweight in this ground than I would, carrying 12 stone if you had a gun to my head. So I can certainly see why Ed's looking for a 10 stone merchant with Lebroy. But I'd probably go with Snow Leopardess for the purposes certainly of this podcast. Again, that there's an element of risk attached to a horse that's never jumped the fences, but sometimes horses just take to it, and it's probably a risk worth taking on a mare who has, like I say, got a good attitude to the game. So she's the one that sort of stands out to me, looking at the field rather than the odds, because she's only a 6-1 chance after all.
7-1, 7-1 Snow Leopardess,
7 to 1,
as
slightly
it
better
stands at the moment. So we'll move over then to the racing at Sandown on Saturday. You're gonna have to rattle through this pretty quickly. Unless Andy, Ed, you may do too, but knowing the way you guys both work, I think Andy's more likely. We've got no prices so far for the novice hurdle, but before we move on to the races where we do, is there any in here that have been flagged up in your speed figures?
Yeah, Mai Tai clocked a good number when he won down in Newton Abbot on his debut, and the form's been boosted by the second, hasn't it, Thunder Rock? So he was beating no back number that day because Thunder Rock's held in really high regard by Ollie Murphy, and got the job done really well next time out at Wetherby. So it was just like there was substance to that stylish win. Sometimes you can have just a stylish run and there's nothing behind it, but it looked a good effort. It looked very much like a Metier kind of run. But Metier won at Newton Abbot before coming on to Sandown at Tolworth, and you could see how Harry Fry's mind's working, isn't it? He's probably thinking, well, let's go to Sandown, let's run him at a track where we can bring him back for the Tolworth to see if he handles the East slopes. And he's up against Hardcore and a nice one of Nicky's, but I think that looks a good sort of next rung on the ladder for him. You'd be disappointed if he didn't win. I think he was even money the other week when he was a withdrawal on account of the ground, but I think Sandown's going to have slightly softer ground than it was the last weekend when he was down to run. So yeah, Mai Tai, very interesting run in that first race.
Mai Tai, the one to keep an eye on. What kind of price would you be hoping for?
You'd be looking for odds against, of course. I think that's why I'd be sort of getting excited if he was. Okay,
there we go. Mai Tai, the one for Andy there. On then to the 150, which is the Henry VIII Novice Chase, is the first race with prices. But Ed, just before we move on to that, we've got the 1240, which is the mare's handicap hurdle, and we've got the novice handicap hurdle before that as well. Anything in there for you that you want to flag up, or should we get cracking onto the meatier stuff?
Happy to skip those, but just a point on the ground, George, that time of recording, I think it was like good to soft in places, but there's up to 10 millimetres of rain forecast from kind of Friday morning throughout until Saturday. So I'd imagine by Saturday afternoon, the ground conditions would be riding substantially softer than they were before racing, if that makes sense. So just something to bear in mind how much rain does hit the track.
Yeah, interesting. We're getting then to the 115. Sorry, no, we won't get into the 115 because that is no prices for that one. So we'll get into the 150. Before we get into the Tingle Creek as well, we're going to hear from Barry Geraghty, 888 Sport Ambassador, on his thoughts on this race as well. But I'll keep those close to my chest before you guys give your thoughts as well. But third time lucky here is the favourite at 6-4. Edward Stone is 9-2. Warlord 6-1. Manila Drama 13-2. Il Ridotto 8-1. Stolen Silver 12-1. And Do Your Job 16-1. Ed, what do you? Third time lucky, answering all the questions asked of him so far, but this maybe a little bit tougher.
Yeah, indeed. And again, if it was a little bit underwhelming in a way last time out at Cheltenham, wasn't he? He kind of, I wouldn't say empty for crying out loud. He won the race, but he didn't quite power away as much as we thought he would have done in winning. It was interesting to listen to Dan Skelton's comments in the aftermath, said he'd almost got a bit light with him in his training, and perhaps he was worried. In fact, in hindsight, he didn't have him fully tuned up for that. Well, yeah, he's going to need to be on his mettle here. Again, it's just his third quick run in a relatively short space of time, and he's all about speed. He's all about attacking, isn't he? And I'm finding this, again, a little bit of a puzzler. What I will say is I think there's going to be an absolute pace burn up on here, especially if Manila Drama's let loose on the front end. Third time lucky has kind of got one way of going. That's going forward. It's a really interesting contest, especially with you've got the Paul Nichols horse in here, Il Redito's being turned out a week later as well. I've got stronger convictions later on in the card. I just think it's very tricky to call. It's hard to sneer at third time lucky in what he's done. But if there is a mad old pace burn up and it does collapse, Warlord is unbeaten over fences. Of course, there wasn't much to separate him and Manila Drama last time out. But this horse has got form over 2.5, including on soft. And I can imagine he will be held off the pace. There'll be a big tear upon up front. And if they do kind of fall in a hole, this horse will stay. He's kind of proven in that sense that his our team are back to some extent, aren't they? As we've talked about in previous shows. And so, yeah, it's a muddling little contest. I think it's a brilliant spectacle, not one that's carrying my money. At the prices, tentatively with Warlord. But there's a few of these in here I don't quite know what to make of. And I do think the pace angle will be key.
Tentatively with Warlord 6-1, just 7 runners as it is, sadly. So only 2 places if you are going to have an each way bet. Andy, how do you see it?
Yeah, this is probably the race I've got the strongest view on of the entire weekend. I desperately want to take on the favourite here, third time lucky. It's just something not quite right with those runs at Cheltenham. That they've been visually very good. You know, he's looked and provided the wow factor, hasn't he? The way he's jumped down the back. But when you actually dig down into the numbers he's posted, and we've got a body of work over a period of about 15 years at least to suggest he's run nowhere near the level that visually he's looked as though he has done. You know, to be an Arca horse, you need to be knocking out numbers in and around the 75 speed figure mark to be a bona fide Arca horse. Like you look back over the years, your size in Europe, your Shiskins, your Sprinter Sacras, that the very, very good ones will be running to that level. This fella's done a 61 and a 62. He's actually the bottom rated horse coming into this race based on our time figures. I'm not saying
Really?
I'm not saying he can't. I'm not saying he can't improve and he can't win. All I'm saying is I don't think he's quite good as what everyone thinks, and I think his price isn't reflective of that. I think he's a really shocking price at 6-4. It's a kind of race with 7 runners. I'd probably just stand him, and you know, I've got 6 good horses running for me, rather than try and find the right one and end up getting it wrong and thinking I'll blast it. You know, I've got third time lucky, right, but I didn't get the right winner, kind of thing. I think there's some big players in this race that have been underestimated. Edward Stone, I think, is one of the most talented horses in this field. He might have won first time up over fences this season had he not got brought down, but he proved that he was unlucky when going back to Warwick the next day, and he jumped fantastically. I think his jumping's got better as time's gone on, and he's an absolute beast of a horse to look at. He's got lots of power. I do think Do Your Job is going to be underestimated. He's the outside of the field here at 14-1, and that's a complete insult because he's a very good horse in his own right. You've got Manila Drama, who they tried to hold him up last time at Carlisle. It just didn't work. He's best going off from the front and letting him off the leash. He jumped not so good because he was held up last time out. I think that ultimately cost him against the Warlord. And then you chuck in the Nichols runner from a yard that loves this race, runs in the same colours of Hitman and Mod, who won this race last year. He's not tipped up. So I think this is an absolute humdinger. Because I'd be against the favourite big time here. I think he's a real good lay for the bookmakers. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong. But he's only 6-4 shot at the end of the day, and I think he should be bigger. At the prices, I'd probably split my stakes if I was going to go play this race from a win perspective with Edward Stone at 4-1 and Do Your Job. I think he's ridiculously overpriced. He's a very good horse, Michael Scudamore horse.
Andy, I'll tell you this once. I'm going to tell you again. You've got to use oddschecker. Edward Stone 9-2. You're getting 9-2 at Edward Stone. Do Your Job 14-1, ridiculous price. 16-1. How about that?
Wow. It's almost like you're one of those market stall sellers that
avocados to £1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm just giving you.
You're chucking in an extra apple and an orange if I spend an extra 50p.
There aren't many in this game who are chucking extra bits for you, Andy. I know that pretty well. That's your first price boost in a while, I think. But Do Your Job, 16-1 best prices as it is. Edward Stone 9-2, a very, very strong stance against third time lucky, the favourite there from Andy Holding. And as I say, we did speak to Barry Geraghty. I spoke at least to Barry Geraghty earlier. He gave me his thoughts on last weekend's racing and on the race we've just covered and ahead of the rest of the weekend's racing, which you can hear now. delighted as ever to be joined by 888 Sport ambassador Barry Geraghty. And Barry, before we look ahead at the weekend's racing, as ever, always great to get your thoughts on what was another dramatic weekend, especially at Newbury, and hardly possible to think of a more fitting and a more popular winner than Cloudy Glen in the Ladbrokes Trophy.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously for the late Trevor Hemmings, who was a brilliant supporter of the game and so many yards and jockeys, and he was a brilliant man to ride for. And yeah, a sad loss, obviously, but it was a brilliant success, and great for Phoenicia Williams too. She's never lost the knack of how to produce a good handicapper. And Charlie Deutsch gave him a beautiful ride. So no, it was a good success all around, and a really good race as well to add.
Yeah, great race. So gutsy after the last as well. I think most fans who'd already thrown their betting slip in the bin were rooting for Cloudy Glen as they approached the finish. But some interesting runners to take out of the races as well. Who do you think were the horses to take away from the race?
Yeah, for me, the two horses would have been the two that finished up on the deck. Obviously, Remastered was running a big race when he came down 4 out, and it was a heavy fall. He seemed to get up okay, so hopefully he is okay. He's going to be worth keeping an eye out. And I thought Unrealo was creeping into it nicely down the back when he checked out. So if those two come out of that race okay, I'd say the horses definitely you'd want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and it's good that we're talking now without Andy Holding, because I think if I mention Ahoy Senor, given his love for Mr. Invincible and his hopes for him for the season, he'd probably walk out of the Skype call. But I mean, an amazingly striking performance from Ahoy Senor. How good could he be?
I think he's very good. And you know, he beat Braveman's Game in Aintree, and he was 66-1, and people were saying Braveman's Game maybe he was feeling the effects of his run at Cheltenham. But High Senor, he's a horse on the up. He jumps well. He was untidy at a few, but I would forgive him that, especially a mistake at the water jump. The water jump is smaller than any other jump in the course, and horses tend to lose respect at them and just not concentrate. So for me, he's a real big old-fashioned chaser, loads of scope. The fourth last in particular, he was brilliant. But from halfway down the back, the second time, I thought he was really good. He's going to learn from this run. I think you build on it. And I'd say Braveman's Game has plenty to worry about in this fella, let alone any of the Irish contingent.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other horses to keep an eye on to put on the tracker from last weekend's racing?
Yeah, plenty really. I thought John Bond was very impressive on Friday. He jumped professionally, really quick and slick. He jumped to the front half and down the back, which probably wasn't ideal, but there wasn't much pace on. I think his horse going to be better suited by a stronger gallop. But I love the way he quickened, and he quickened again in the straight. And it was a smart performance. He looks like he could be an exciting one, and he's obviously gone favourite for the Supreme. And at the minute, I think he's a worthy favourite. I suppose another horse who in defeat, I was surprised that the tactics really was Paisley Park. They put cheek pieces on him for the first time. He's normally ridden to warm up into his races. He hits a flat spot and he finishes strongly, as you saw in the long walk hurdle in Ascot, when he could have been 10 lengths down turning in, and he bombed home to beat Time Hill. That's a style of running, and to change it so dramatically to making the running, and when himself and on the blind side locked horns leaving the back straight, they got racing early. He winged the third last. He was under the cosh before the second last. That isn't how Paisley Park is normally ridden, and there's a reason why he is normally ridden the other way, because he's a slow burner, if you like. So I think change back to the old tactics, leave on the cheap pieces by all the means. But I think 40-1 for the Stairs hurdle is a complete overreaction. He's a bigger contender than that.
Yeah, 40-1 about Paisley Park for the Stayers, and John Bond, such an interesting one from a betting point of view. You know, you think of the connections there, and you don't normally associate massive drifters with winners in the Golden Green, but John Bond out from, I think it was 3 on at a time, a kind of a pre-exchange market, out to nearly 6-4 on the exchanges on the day, and then goes and wins like that. An interesting case, but certainly very short now favourite for the Supreme. A horse who has nothing to prove at the festival also returned in scintillating style, the unbeaten Honeysuckle, and you know it's hard to find any more superlatives when it comes to her. If she continues in this vein, I mean, how high amongst the ranks of the greatest is she going to end up?
Oh, she's definitely on the way there. I was really impressed with her on Sunday. I was at Fairy House, end-to-end gallop. Rachel went at her early. Ronald Pump went close to beating her last year in the death when Henry said she probably needed a run. they didn't ride her on Sunday like she needed to run. Rachel was aggressive on her, up with the pace, went forward with 3 to jump, and won by 8 lengths, and another 4 back to Abacadabra. So I think it was a really good performance. Her jumping was nowhere near as slick as it was in the Champion Hurdle or at the Dublin Racing Festival. So she was a bit rusty. There's improvement there. I think the world's her oyster. She's obviously by far and away the best around at the minute, and people are saying that she doesn't have an awful lot to beat. She's beaten Sharjah last year's Champion Hurdle, but she isn't just beating what she's up against by 2 or 3 lengths. She's beaten them 6 lengths going away comfortably. You can't do any more than that. So I think if there was another superstar around, it'd have to be very super to beat her.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look ahead to the weekend's racing, and we're going to start at Sandown, where we've got the Tingle Creek and 5 run as it stands, but it's a quality field. And the rumours about Chaka and Poursoir not making the trip proved to be false. 5-4 favourite Chaka, Poursoir, Nuba Negra 5-2, Grenadine 9-2, Hitman 14-1 alongside Captain Guinness, making up the 5 runners there. Barry, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, for me, it's the 2 at the head of the market. I think they're a long way ahead of the rest. And if you look at the Champion Chase, Nuba Negra finished in front of Chaka and Poursoir. But for me, I don't think Chaka and Poursoir turned up in Cheltenham at all. Yeah. And he still ran a good enough race, a reasonable race. In Punchestown, you saw a different Chaka and Poursoir. He beat Nuba Negra 25 lengths. Now, it's arguably slightly slower ground, but 25 lengths is a big turnaround. He had Allaho 5 lengths behind in second, who destroyed the field in the Ryanair. So that level of form is streets ahead of the Champion Chase form. Nuba Negra has been impressive in Cheltenham in the Shlour Chase. You'd have to respect him, but on that Punchestown form, there's only one winner.
Yeah, it looks that way. Chaka and Poursoir, the favourite, the one to beat at the top end. And we're going to go over to Punchestown on Sunday for the John Durkan as well, where we are recording this just after 4 o'clock on Thursday, so this could age pretty quickly. And we've obviously seen today that Willie Mullins doesn't run any of his horses at Navan. We're not entirely sure what the situation is going to be on Sunday at Punchestown. The going is good at Navan. It looks to be on the softer side, at least at Punchestown on Sunday. We know that Album Photo is not going to run at this stage, but there are a couple still in there. But either way, at the moment, Envoy Allen is the even money favourite ahead of Fakir Duderi at 7-2. Allaho, one of those with question marks around, and Asterion Folange 5-1 and 8-1. Janadil 10-1. The aforementioned Album Photo still in there because not officially withdrawn 12-1. Kenboy 14-1. I mean, you go through this and you realise how many cards belong to the Mullins camp. But at this stage, assuming the top 2 do go, and Envoy Allen and Fakir Duderi's, and possibly a sprinkling of Mullins runners as well, how do you see this panning out?
Well, as it stands, Envoy Allen, he's favourite, and he's a high-class novice. He didn't impress me as much as I would have expected him to at Downroyal. I was surprised he Rachel gave him a little crack after the last. Everything he's done with great ease and great pace. So that surprised me. But, he's had a few issues. Maybe he's a little bit rusty. He needed to run. You won't say excuses, but you can make reasons for it maybe. Fakir Duderi's, for me, I would imagine he'd want it softer to beat Envoy Allen. And then, but the big question mark is Allaho. Does Allaho run? If Allaho turns up, obviously 2 cheaply parked runners, you'd have thought not likely, but coming from 2 different stables, both horses needing to get a run, will they both line up? Allaho would be very interesting if he does. Just as I say, a small little question mark over him, Envoy Allen, and his issues and where he is. So Allaho would be the one for me if he does turn up.
And finally, some great racing, at Navan on Saturday, Punchestown on Sunday, at Sandown on Saturday, at Aintree on Saturday, Huntingdon on Sunday. Loads to choose from. Anything else you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, I thought Il Ridotto, the horse that won in Newbury on Saturday, he really impressed me. As a 4-year-old, he crept into the race, hit a little flat spot, came alive on the straight, missed the second last, won comfortably. Only his second run in England. I'd say he improved a lot, obviously, from his first run. And with the 4-year-old allowance on Saturday, I don't see any reason why you can't give Third Time Lucky a run for it. Third Time Lucky beat a 25-1 shot and beat Buddy Rich, who got turned over since. He's been very impressive, jumped brilliantly, but he hasn't had to beat much. But Il Ridotto, I really like him. He caught my eye, and I think he could be a little bit of value to oppose him. Of the others, I thought Notebook is of interest if he goes to the Peterborough Chase on Sunday. I thought he's been crying out for 2.5 miles, so he's interesting. Nicky runs a nice horse in the novice hurdle that we had as a point-to-pointer, Constitution Hill. I'm looking forward to seeing him on Saturday. He's a one we like, so we'll keep an eye on him.
Yeah, a little Easter egg there for those who've listened on to the end, I think there, Barry. Thank you very much for taking the time to speaking to us today, 888 Sport Ambassador Barry Geraghty.
Cheers, George. Thank you.
Time then to get on to the main event over the weekend, the big race on Saturday. It is the Tingle Creek, and we have 5 runners. As I mentioned there to Barry, Chacun Pour Soi is the 5-4 favourite, Nuba Negra 5-2, Grenadine 9-2, Hitman 14-1, Captain Guinness 14-1. Andy, I've spoken to Barry just there about it, so I'm not going to talk too much here, but I'll let you take it away on what is a high quality contest with plenty of intrigue, certainly across the field.
Yeah, we've lost the depth that we had in midweek in the sense that we had, I think, 8-9 runners, but it was never ever going to be an each-way betting race, was it? I think a couple of firms stuck their neck out and went 3 places, but by and large, it's 2 places only. So we're dealing with trying to get the winner, aren't we? Really? I mean, look, Chacun Pour Soi, he's shown on many occasions, and he's just in a different stratosphere to this. Like when he puts it all together, we've seen not glimpses, but a good body of work to suggest that there's probably only Shishkin around that maybe could beat him if he brings his A game to the table. The only disappointment was, of course, the Champion Chase when it mattered most last season. Whether Cheltenham's his bag, I don't know. I've got a sneaky feeling that might not be his course. But on home soil, Leopardstown, Punchestown, as we've seen, he's been deadly. And he absolutely battered Nubi Negra the last time we saw him at Punchestown. And you've only got to go back and review the video to see that. Whether Nubi Negra wasn't quite the right or not, I don't know on the day. But if you're looking at the odds and you're looking at the 24 lengths he's got to make up, you'd think that odds against for Nubi Negra for Chacun Pour Soi looks fair enough. And you're looking at probably what's going to finish second or bet without the favourite. If I was going to go down that route, I do think Hitman has got a sneaky bit of potential to perhaps be the one that we might chase the favourite home. He's not an absolute million to winning outright, by the way, but he looked like the most likely winner for me of the Holden Gold Cup. But I think for one of Nichols, he arguably he looked as though he needed the run. He just got a little bit tired late on. He went to the front, and then probably the more strong staying horse, the 2.5 mile horse, Eldorado Allen, did him. But he went through the race like a quality horse. Went through the race better than Grenadine, by the way. And I think he'll uphold the form with his stabber companion. I think he probably would have won here last year, but for not falling, and he would have probably beaten Shamblou. So yeah, I quite like Hitman without the favourite. He's bound to be third favourite based on Nubi Negra being 9-4 and Grenadine 3-1. So yeah, he'd be the way I'd play the race from a value perspective, rather than backing Chacun Pour Soi at a really tight price.
He's 14-1 Hitman as it stands at the moment. Would you be happy, 5 runners, a quarter of the 2? Would you be backing Hitman each way at 14s, or would you be looking for the without Chacun market?
Yeah, I mean, the only other way to skin the cat there is perhaps to back him in a 3-place market, because I think he'll be ridden to perhaps pick up pieces. Ridden sort of relatively chilly, with a view to winning if they can. But I think they'll be, just mindful of just getting the best out of him as possible. So yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think it's a fascinating race. It's a classy heat, but we're always looking to how we can best utilise it from a betting perspective, and that's the angle I'd be approaching.
Yeah, Hitman, as I say, 14-1. Keep an eye out on those special markets that Andy mentioned. Ed, I mean, normally I look to you for the big price ones to take on the fab, but Andy's already done it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with a lot of what Andy's saying here, actually. And look, I think Chacun Pour Soi is the most likely winner. And if you say, thing is, it's the one race you wanted to see him go and crown his kind of moment of glory. Obviously, was it at Cheltenham, and he didn't quite go through with it. Now, just put that little niggle in people's minds, haven't they? The one time he left Ireland, he didn't get the job done. And you can throw a blanket over him, Grenadine, and Nubi Negra from that Champion Chase renewal. But other than that, he kind of has conquered all, hasn't he? And also, I think if the rain, we do get 10 or 12 millimetres of rain, that won't be a problem for him either. Whereas I do just got it in the back of my mind that Nubi Negra is it's a fast travelling horse. I mean, the ground was absolutely rattling at Cheltenham last time out, and he's a strong traveller. And I wouldn't want again see this turn into the ground turn too soft for him. But so look, yeah, I think Chacun Pour Soi will probably win. But Hitman is the one. It was again listening to Paul Nichols, knows a bit more about racing than myself, and he said with him and Grenadine, before Exeter, they both would need the outing. He said Grenadine more than Hitman, but look, they both were there with a stepping stone to the future. I expect Grenadine will strip a lot fitter. I mean, it will have to be. But, of course, he was runner-up in this last year, so I think he will come forward from it. Hitman's an interesting one because he said on the back of the Holden Gold Cup, his actual quote was, "We need to find out what his trip is." Now, they've been running him over 2.5 last year. Perhaps he hadn't quite been getting home. They ran him, if you say 80% fit over an extended 2 miles, one extra last time out. He appeared to not quite get home. So kind of using Da Vinci Code, read between the lines, they finally kind of decided he's a 2-miler. And given how strong he travels, I mean, your eyes would kind of agree with that, if you see what I'm saying. So he had this with Politolog earlier on in his career. He ran him over 2.5, I think, up at Haydock one day. And then there was a lot of and he ended up going for a King George. And after all that, he said, no, I've been wasting my time with this horse for 2 seasons. He's a 2-miler. And I think they've come to that conclusion a bit quicker with Hitman, is what I'm saying. So Harry Cobden's on board. He's a strong traveller. As long as Captain Guinness stands up, I imagine he'll go forward and go off like a mad thing. And this will be run at a fair old clip. I could see Hitman kind of being smuggled into the race, if you like. So, yeah, if I was going to straight forecast it, I'd go Chacun Pour Soi with Hitman to pick up the pieces. And again, if it rains, he's got form in soft. That wouldn't necessarily be a problem. Whereas I just think Nube Negra is he's quite fast, if you see what I'm saying, for want of a better phrase. And I'm not sure you want this to turn into a slog up the Sandown Hill if the rain really did arrive. So, yeah, Chacun Pour Soi to beat Hitman for me. I'm tempted at that price just to back Hitman win only, to be honest with you. If Chacun Pour Soi, for whatever reason, doesn't travel and first time out is the time to catch him out, I don't think there's a lot between the others, even though official ratings would suggest there is. So, yeah, Hitman's definitely the horse from a betting angle I want to be with.
Yes, there's no doubt.
He's actually, he's actually 7-1 without the favourites. There's a couple of firms which have
that's a fair angle. I'd go. Yeah,
already pushed their head above the parapet and offered odds without Chacun Pour Soi. You can get 7-1 with one firm, 13-2 with another. If that's the kind of odds we're looking at, then that's a lot bigger than I thought that was going to be.
Yeah, that's the play.
And it sounds like you almost think that's the price he should be to win the race. So if you're taking out the likely winner, then
I think that's a fair price.
I think you've got it with both barrels there. If you wanted to go with the 14-1, fair enough. But I do think 7-1 he's big enough to not even worry about beating Chacun Pour Soi. I'll be more than happy with that 7-1 without the fav.
Yeah, 7-1 without the favourite as it stands. More firms will be coming out there, 14-1 to win, or with that quarter of the odds top 2. The final 2 races at Sandown, we've got the London National Handicap over 3.5. Strictly a Dancer 4-1 favourite. Larry 5-1. De Sabre 5-1. Highland Hunter 7-1. Christmas in April 8-1. The Mighty Don 11s. Salty Boy 11s. And Andy, we'll start with you here in Strictly a Dancer. You called Strictly a Dancer pretty well last time we spoke about Strictly a Dancer on this podcast, saying you kind of off the bridle never seems to be travelling that well, but then always seems to do enough to win. And it was the same again last time.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, he's a devil of a difficult one to sort of pigeonhole with regards handicapping, isn't he? Where we'll end up, he'll end up. He's just like I say, it's just hard to say how much he's got in hand. He just saves a bit for himself, almost pulls himself up a little bit when he's at the front. So you'd be brave man to say he couldn't win again. Albeit I do think he's up against 2 horses that run this track particularly well, and one of them's Dacia Arbor, who's a bit of an iffy character. He also races a bit on and off of it, but his career record here at Sandown, I think he's 2 for 2. He just seems to come alive here at this track for one reason or another. So with those quirky horses, when they get the sort of comfort blanket which obviously they need, i.e. a track which they like, I don't know whether he just likes queuing in the high street at Sandown to get into the course like we all have to do. Whether in half an hour's worth of track he thinks, oh yeah, the light bulb goes off, this must be Sandown. But there's something about it that just sparks him up. And he had a spin the other day which I think would have blown away the cobwebs. So yeah, I think if you gave me a bet on what I'm going to put up for the podcast, then I'd look no further than him.
Ed?
And we're remarkably singing off the same hymn sheet compared to the previous podcast we're on, aren't we? Again, it's strictly of an answer. I mean, I have no idea whether that horse is rated 129, to be honest with you. Could he have another £6 or £7 in hand? Again, you worry when the busy schedule start to catch up with him. The Christian Williams yard got a little bit cold, but I just find these are just red flags, these races. And Disha Arbor, 2 from 2 at the Isha venue. Absolutely loves this track. Admittedly, both those wins have come on hot, deep ground. So probably want to see the upper end of the 10 millimetres of rain arrive, if you see what I'm saying, for his claims. But a fiercely competitive race. I don't have a clue about Strictly a Dancer, whether this horse is to say. He's kind of, in his first win at Cheltenham at the October meeting, he jumped and travelled beautifully, and then he won well. But again, as Andy says, he almost saves a little bit for himself, and he could be tricking the handicapper a bit here, and he could be a mid-130s horse easily. We just still don't know. So, funny old race, tentatively, Disha Arbor, if the more soft starts to appear in the going description than the word good.
Disha Arbor there, 5-1, getting positive mentions. So Strictly Dancer could be more to come. Currently 4-1 favourite. On to the last now, the 335, and we've got Hudson de Grugy as a 4-1 favourite ahead of Metier. Well, Metier, haven't seen Metier, have we, since was being tipped up by some to be the one to take on Appreciate It in the Supreme, but things didn't go to plan. And Metier turns up here off a mark of 144 and is 5-1. Benson 11-2. Samariv is 13-2. 12-1 bar. Ed, any value you can see at this stage?
Yeah, I'm with one of the bars in here, if you like. There's a horse getting £20.
You're always in the bars.
I'm always in the bar. Yeah. There's one here getting £20 from Metier, and it's Fergal O'Brien's Elm Valley with Paddy Brennan on board, 10 stone 1. We talked about kind of course form at Sandown, the kind of idiosyncrasies of that track, something I like to latch on to. You know, this horse's only win over hurdles. Admittedly, he's only had the 6 starts over hurdles, but his only win did come at this track on very soft ground, where he's just, I think this race could be set up perfectly for him again. Your typical Paddy Brennan, he's almost becoming a bit like Jamie Spencer, isn't he, in his later years in terms of riding. He'll be racing the ambulance for the first circuit and a half, and then he'll be trying to judge the pace to perfection and then come with the rattle and pass horses up the Sandown Hill. But look, he's got the course form in the book. The rains arrived there to help him. He was placed in the Fred Winter off this mark. He's come down, back down to the same mark as when he was placed in the Fred Winter. So I think he's ticking a lot of the boxes here. Naturally, your eyes are drawn to those more fanciful types and unexposed. But I know it sounds almost layman terms to say, but this is a handicap, and I do think, he's getting a lot of weight here, and he's going to have a lot in his favour. You see what I'm saying? And so, he's a double figure price. Elm Valley each way. Again, check your each way terms. Some bookmakers on Saturdays now start tripping over themselves to give away 7 places in an 8-runner race, it seems, doesn't it? So check your each way terms. But again, I think we talked about the pace angle and everything. I think they'll go hard. I think he'll be held up in last, and I think he'll look to kind of pick them off. And if the rains do arrive, as I said, and it becomes quite soft, there is a chance, of course, they could all just come back to him a bit. And Paddy Brennan, I do think, is a very good judge of pace. So with the course form in the book, off a feasible mark, he'll get the nod from me each way.
Yeah, rightly or wrongly, I always feel there are some trainers who you're very happy to back their horses, and Fergal's certainly one of those, but they always seem to run their race. And the Fergal O'Brien, Paddy Brennan combination normally fairly fruitful. Elm Valley, they're 12-1 for the last race at Sandown. Andy?
Can I pass this race? And
Absolutely. Let's move on.
I only want to pass it because my nap's running in it.
Your nap's running in this?
Yeah, my nap of the weekend's running in this.
Aye.
I mean, the listeners and viewers are not going to be happy about that at all.
No,
I can promise you that.
I can't possibly get away with that, can I? I was hoping to God we wouldn't be covering this race. I was thinking, surely we're not going to be covering
Skip
the 335 at Sandown.
Sorry, Andy. That's why we pay you the big bucks, I'm afraid.
Yeah, okay. Right, cat's out the bag. Right, Benson will win this. Dr. Newlands. The day when he won, I think it was at this meeting last year, if I recall. I think Elm Valley won the first race, did he not? And Benson won the last race. Yeah. In between, there was 50 Ball won a handicap hurdle as well. It was an extraordinary run by Benson. I mean, it was the last race in the card. The ground was absolutely like a bog. It had got churned up, round the inside was a swamp. He did everything wrong, even putting a slow jump at the second last just to put the tin hat on it. And yet he still powered away from a good field in a fantastic time figure, by far and away the best on the card. I think there's about 6 or 7 seconds difference between Elm Valley and Benson. So I know he's a better horse than Elm Valley. And he was on my shortlist, bizarrely, for the Supreme Novices Hurdle. He was still in the Supreme Novices Hurdle up to the 5-day stage, and he didn't run. He's had a wind operation, so there was clearly something not quite right with him after he ran an extraordinary race at Ascot in the race that was won by Not So Sleepy. I think Buzzers in that race. He never won a yard in that race. He just spat the dummy out. All of a sudden, he took off again. He almost dropped out the back of the TV and came charging through. So he's clearly got a bit of a kink to him, but once he gets a bit between his teeth, he really does pick up. And I think that's why Sandown suits him with that long pull. He ran a really eye-catching race behind Gowell Road the other day at Cheltenham in a very good race. That race was one of the best sectional time figure races of the 2 days back in mid-November. And I thought Gowell Road ran perfectly respectably in a bit of a tactical mess at Newby over the weekend, which didn't suit him. But I think that form has certainly been not let down anyway by Gowell Road. But he just patently didn't get home. He travelled, like I say, like the best horse. Just didn't quite 2-5, didn't get home. But that should have served a purpose to put a lovely little edge on him going back to Sandown, his favourite track. If he's anywhere near them turning for home, he'll just run over everything because there's nothing will be finishing stronger. So he's 5-1 at the moment, 4 places.
11-2, Andy. 11-2.
Is that with 4 places?
No, just the 3.
Well, yeah, I'll be happy. I don't really need.
Quarter the odds, though, rather than the 5th.
I don't really need 4 places because he'll win anyway. But yeah, he's the best bet. He's the best bet of the weekend by a country mile.
Benson there, 11-2 best price, 5-1 best price if you want the 4 places. We'll move on just in case, Andy, anyone just fell asleep or popped out to make a cup of tea during that. We won't dwell on it, but thank you very much for opening up to us there. We'll go over to the
I'll probably put that horse up on Saturday. It's 5-2.
We'll go over now to the Peterborough Chase over Huntingdon on Sunday. We've got to be quick here because I know you guys have other appointments this afternoon. But All Mankind is a 6-4 favourite. Hitman, who we've discussed, who probably won't be turning up here, 6-1. Fusel Raffles 6-1. Master Tommy Tucker 6-1. Eldorado Allen, First Flow, and plenty of others there 7-1, 12-1, and bigger. And we've heard Andy's big bet of the weekend there. I know, Ed, you've got a big one that you fancy here in this one.
Yeah, obviously we don't know exact field yet, so there is some element of guesswork. But we've talked about this angle a whole show in terms of kind of bit of pace collapse and those coming from off it. And with All Mankind of First Flow in here, I think this is going to be running at a billion miles an hour. I think this race was set up perfectly for the aforementioned Holden Gold Cup winner Eldorado Allen. Obviously, he beat Hitman and Granatine in Exeter, so we'd like to see one of those two, or at least both of them, go out and run well in the Tingle Creek on Saturday. But Eldorado Allen, the Tizard team are back. I mean, just to say for numbers, for a bit of context, last season they're operating around a 9% strike rate. Been operating around a 23% strike rate over the last 2 months. So they really have U-turned their entire stable. A lot of horses, as a consequence, just didn't show their true form last season. And I just think Eldorado Allen is one of these who, it's great to see him back, and he did well to win it at Exeter. And I thought he won at Exeter in spite of the trip, rather than because of it. I mean, he was under the pump from a long way out, but he really stayed well on that occasion. Yes, you could perhaps argue maybe Hitman kind of folded a little bit in the closing stages, but it was stamina that won him that race. He's entitled to come on for it. He's going up in trip to 2.5 miles. And yeah, I respect All Mankind totally, but he's short enough. First Flow, I don't think the ground will be anywhere near soft enough for him. And I think when I last looked at oddschecker, he was 7-1. And it sounds like he's going to run. This race is going to cut up to 5 runners. I think he's a huge price personally. I think it's between him and All Mankind, and 7-1 plays 6-4, whatever. I'm definitely with Eldorado Allen at those prices. I think it's a massive price.
Massive price, Eldorado Allen, as you say, 7-1, pretty much across the boards. Andy?
Yeah, I'd probably be more keen to play this on the day once I knew what was in the field, because if there are plenty of front runners in there, like I say, Ed's already pointed out, then it's a difficult way it's a difficult race to process. But I'm a massive fan of All Mankind. I mean, if there's not a gutsier horse in training than him, I haven't met one, because his effort when he won at Aintree last time out was the stuff of stuff of legends. He gave absolutely everything and some. He was just brilliant. I was cheering him on and all the way through, even though I hadn't got too much of a financial interest in him.
Too much. There you go. I had to slip that in.
Yeah, it was just a token bet because I love the horse already more than anything else.
Form's worked out well, hasn't it?
The form was brilliant, isn't it, Ed? I mean, the third and the fourth have both won. And they've both won well as well since then. Just
big
won.
races.
Midnight Shadow and the other horse last Saturday, Fanny and Destravala, what it's called.
Yeah.
And the time figure was excellent. So look, he's a hard horse for me to sort of oppose for various reasons. But whether I'd want to back him at a relatively short price, I presume he'll be a short price, up against horses that might take him on, like a Cool Cody, like Master Tommy Tucker. There's various horses in there that might spoil the party, so to speak. So yeah, I'd probably just sit this out and hope that All Mankind won it, but probably not from a financial perspective.
Hoping there, but no bet there for Andy. We are going to quickly, before we let you go over to the John Durkan. As I mentioned to Barry, we're kind of unsure at the time of recording on Thursday afternoon what is going to be the case with the Willie Mullins runners who aren't running on Saturday. We don't know if they're going to turn up on Sunday. The prices are kind of going down as we speak for the John Durkan, but Envoy Allen is still the 5 to 6 favourite ahead of Fakir Duderi at 7-4, Alaho in at 5-1, Asterion Falange 7-1, Janadil 10-1, Albin Photo 12-1. I mean, we don't know, Ed. I mean, there's a suggestion that Alaho might run up against Envoy Allen with Fakir Duderi, as Barry mentioned. Maybe some concerns with the ground as well. I mean, how do you see this? It's hard to give it a proper preview, but how do you see it?
Again, very hard to have any cast iron assertions. All I would say is, if Alaho did line up, I would back him. What he's achieved over fences, I still think Envoy Allen's very much priced up as a novice hurdler. That's the phrase I've been using in terms of his chasing. There's no hiding place here. You get Fakir Duderi, Alaho, he's in against a whole host of 165 rated plus chasers. There's going to be at least 2 or 3 of them turn up. Yeah, it was great to see Envoy Allen win on his comeback. All that told you was he had 4 legs, nothing more. At the prices, if Alaho does line up, I would be backing Alaho, even conceding the fact that Envoy Allen's got race fitness on his side. But again, we don't have a clue what's going on here. But I just wonder if Envoy Allen could go off artificially short, I suppose probably would be the phrase I'm using here. But yeah, Alaho, officially rated 174. Off the top of my head, I cannot remember a more impressive winner of the Ryanair Chase ever. I mean, he had good horses, absolutely cooked 4 out. Look, he's probably not going to be tuned up to that extent for this race today, but nonetheless, as I said, this is a totally different kettle of fish Envoy Allen's going to be taking on over fences. His novice chase campaign, he run 3 races, it won to 33. He had 1 race to try and win with half a task on when Asterion Falange fell at the first, and he managed to come home in isolation. And then since then, he's had another egg and spoon race last time out, and his only real acid test, of course, he failed to get round in the Marsh Chase. So yeah, he's got a lot on his plate for a what is he, a 10 to 11 favourite, personally. I think there's a lot more on his plate than the prices suggest, would be how I'd sum it up.
Andy?
Yeah, I mean, this is a who's who of tend to follow. Everyone's tend to follows list, isn't it? Take your pick. I think you're only missing Manella Indo and a Plutard from an Irish perspective, and they're all there, aren't they? Album Photo, Alaho, Jack and Poursois, Envoy Allen, Fakir Duderi, Sam Crow, Notebook. I mean, it's just you're just reeling top class names off willy nilly. We'll probably end up with a 4-run race.
Yeah,
knowing how Irish trainers operate. Willie will run his one that did the best bit of work on Saturday morning. Probably as late as that, or Saturday evening while it's all dark. And Envoy Allen, probably end up flying the flag for Cheveley Park. I think that the fly in the ointment for all of those sort of big guns, if you like, is Fakir Duderi. I've got a healthy respect for him. I mean, he absolutely battered Raw Rendezvous. Rendezvous was a good winner of the Galway Plate. And was a fresh and fit horse going into Clonmel in the Clonmel Oil, and he clocked the kind of time figure that makes you sort of pick up your ears and notice. That said, Envoy Allen did nothing wrong on the numbers either when he won at Darren Royal as well. His comparative circuit times and sectionals suggest he's back to his absolute best. So this is a real clash of the ages really with these two. Interested to see how they price the race up. Again, it's a difficult race to have a view on until we know the full field. But I agree with that. If Alaho was to turn up, he'd be along with Envoy Allen and Fakir Duderi. There'll be a hell of a crowd pushing through the gates at Punchestown on Sunday because that would be a race to savour.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of good racing at Punchestown on Sunday. We can't do it justice here because, as we say, we're not aware of the runners. We were hoping to appreciate its first run over fences, but that maybe looks like we're going to have to wait for that as well. But we'll see. And hopefully in the coming weeks, we will see that. Thank you very much to both Andy and Ed for joining us as ever today, and to 888 Sport Ambassador Barry Geraghty. Please ensure you do download the oddschecker app for the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, place terms, and Andy's column straight to your app every morning of racing. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of this preview content every week, and you can find this as a podcast on all podcast platforms as well. Thank you very much to 888 Sport for sponsoring the episode, and to Barry Geraghty again for joining us, and to our two guests. Please ensure you enjoy the weekend's racing and do gamble responsibly.